Nothing we say is investment advice. Please pause on all 3 pages of this disclaimer and read it.
Greetings, Algo Artisans. It is Sunday, March the 2nd, and this is our weekly forecast for the markets. We're going to take a look at the charts for Bitcoin, Solana, Litecoin, EURUSD, GBPUSD, USDJPY, USDCAD, GBPJPY, AUDJPY, AUDUSD, USDCHF, SP500 Futures, Dow Futures, NASDAQ Futures, gold, and silver. Couple of things there, a lot more Forex pairs. We are a trading channel. Forex is an excellent place to trade. Crypto is a great place to invest. Not quite as good to trade, especially with all the crazy news lately. But I do include Bitcoin, Solana, and Litecoin because they are tradable. And Litecoin's a new one on the block this week because it is very tradable, and there might even be some other reasons. Historically, I've not been interested in Litecoin as an investment. However, right now, the tradability of Litecoin is interesting. So let's jump into the news, the economic data that's coming out this week that can affect the charts. We're going to take a look over at forexfactory.com. Okay, so here we are, forexfactory.com, Monday, March the 3rd. Not a lot. We have 10 AM EST, some manufacturing PMI data coming out. That's for the US dollar, and that can affect all of the US markets, including stocks. Now, Tuesday, we do have at 9:15 AM EST, BOJ Governor Ueda speaks. And the Japanese yen is a very important component to all of the economies in the world financially. So we're going to pay attention to that, and I would not be in any trades prior to that. I'd wait for whatever that is to happen and then go ahead and take a look at trading after that. Further in the day, we have Aussie dollars quarter over quarter GDP coming out at 7:30 p.m. EST, and then the Swiss CPI right before the European Open, and that's month-over-month CPI, so the Swiss currency could take a move on that one. Wednesday at 8:15 a.m. EST, we have ADP non-farm employment change. That can move the dollar in U.S. markets. We have ISM services PMI, so like the manufacturing version of that, that's on Wednesday at 10 a.m. So like the manufacturing version of that we saw on Monday, this is the services version of that. And again, that can change any kind of U.S. market, anything traded against the dollar, including stocks. We have Thursday, March the 6th, we have the Euro Summit. We also have at 8:15 a.m. EST, the EUR's main financing rate and monetary policy statement. And then not long after that, 15 minutes later, we have the unemployment claims for the USD. So I probably would avoid trading the EURUSD pair, mostly until all that's done. 8:45 a.m. we have the ECB press conference, and again, that's just going to follow up on the monetary statement. So until that press conference is complete, I probably would not be trading the euro in any way, shape, or form. On Friday, we have Canadian data. Their unemployment data comes out at 8:30 a.m. EST, and then you have unemployment data from the US right at the same time. And then we have Fed Chair Powell speaking towards the end of the day at 12:30 p.m. EST, and I'm usually out of the markets by the end of the day, so that shouldn't affect me, but just be careful if you are trading around that time. When Powell speaks, things happen. Let's jump into the charts, and we'll take a look at Bitcoin first. So the crypto predictions this week are going to be a little general because with all the news coming out, Trump, the crypto summit, Trump spoke this morning, Sunday, when nobody was watching, not coincidentally, I think, and Bitcoin just really moved up hard along with Solana and a lot of other cryptocurrencies, right? So very difficult to trade when you have that much headline risk going on. So my crypto predictions are just going to be there to give a general idea of what might happen, and that's in the case there are no major events. As soon as Trump opens his mouth about crypto, it could go either way, and totally throw these off. Any of the predictions that you see on these charts are not for me to trade on. They're just for me to know which way the wind is blowing so that I can make my trades wisely as the market unfolds based on this data. So I do expect Bitcoin to move sideways. It might go up, it might go down a bit because this was a pretty big move. It's going to want to retrace, and it's going to naturally want to retrace back down below 90,000, but it might be that the market is bullish enough to keep the Bitcoin price above 90,000. I do think, though, that this news that came out with Trump talking about the Bitcoin reserve and the crypto reserve and all that is possibly a signal that the bottom was in at 78,500. That remains to be seen as time goes on. Certainly a strong move up from there, but if nothing else happens, there's always that chance price could creep back down into that $80,000 handle. For the moment, for this week, I do think it'll go sideways and stay above 90. If it doesn't, I think it'll stay in that mid to high 80s in there somewhere. And of course, there's always the chance that things get rather bullish and push price above. So again, the crypto looks this week are going to be very general, not very precise, and I'm just going to be, as I always do, using the charts and the algos to make my trade choices. Let's take a look at Solana. Now Solana really moved. That was a big move, and I do expect more of a retracement down than I do with Bitcoin. So I think Solana is going to stay above maybe the 150 area. It always could drop back down a little deeper, but I think it's going to stay above here and kind of bounce around in this area going sideways. But I think that move up was so strong that I do expect a little bit more of a retracement. Now, if more news comes out and other things happen, anything can happen, and it always could just go up or down or whatever, but I do expect more or less sideways action in the general range between 150 and 180 or so. Let's take a look at Litecoin. You notice Litecoin didn't have any major craziness. And as a matter of fact, if you go back through time, you'll see that Litecoin has stayed in the same range going back to like December. And as a matter of fact, all last year it's been very calm. And while it did pull back with the markets, its moves have been on swing trading timeframes a little bit more predictable than everything else. So it makes it really great to trade for swing trades. And the fact that it's not quite as perturbed by the news and the markets and all that makes it really great for swing trades. So I do think it's going to bounce back and forth. Real simple, between about $130 and maybe $115, $116, somewhere in there. And as price approaches those edges, it might be great to trade that range. Real simple. Let's take a look at the EURUSD. So the euro had a major turnaround and gap up, right? There's a big gap up as the market opened and price popped up real hard on the open. And it was actually wanting to go sideways, as this dotted line represents. That's what it wanted to do, but it does appear now with this major open that there has been some bullishness to the market, and the euro may want to go ahead and start to reclaim as high as 104.80. Now it was approaching parity, and it was approaching parity at a pretty fast clip, going back to the end of last year, meaning the same price as the dollar, but it appears that it was saved from that by whatever happened, probably something to do with the news and, Ukraine or whatever it is, and I do expect it to move up and at least reclaim 104.48. Grab that 618 Fibonacci retracement, at least from a current move down. So let's go ahead and take a look at the cable GBPUSD. Similar to the euro, I think it's going to pop up, and I think it's going to go back and forth in this range that it developed last week. Probably bounce back and forth between 126.29 and maybe about 126.79. Somewhere in there, I expect to bounce around, and it may also get rejected around this 126 level and come back down. But the rest of the week, I do expect sideways outside of any major news or events. Let's take a look at USDJPY. Now, the Japanese have been allowing the Japanese yen to strengthen. If we go back and look here, going back to early January, for almost 2 months, the USDJPY has done nothing but go down, reflecting the fact that the Japanese yen has strengthened. Now, we do have the BOJ Governor Ueda speaking on Tuesday, so I stopped the prediction on Tuesday for that time. As it stands, I think USDJPY is going to go sideways or sideways and up until that time, and it really depends on what he says early Tuesday morning, US time, as to what might happen to the USDJPY and any JPY pair. So the JPY pair predictions do end on Tuesday morning in today's show. Let's take a look at USDCAD. USDCAD rejected pretty hard around this 144.70 and gapped down pretty hard on the open. So we might see USDCAD come back into this range that it created going back through late December, where it's going to want to bounce around ultimately between 144.50 and maybe 143.27. I think it might develop a new range on the higher end of that, so maybe 144.08 all the way up to maybe about 144.50 or so. We'll see what happens with that. It might do that, it might go lower, but I do expect sideways besides that data outside of any news or events. Let's take a look at the beast, aka GBPJPY. JPY pairs, predictions all stop on Tuesday. I expect sideways action, not a whole lot there. This is a general idea of what I expect, just to bounce around in the current range, and any surprises will be surprises. Let's take a look at AUDJPY. Prediction ending Tuesday, sideways action into there, a possible dip down as the AUD has been rather bearish. So we might see a move below this 92.72 support. Either we do or we don't, and we will assess that as it happens. Let's take a look at AUDUSD. Again, Aussie has been pretty bearish, so I do expect more of the stair stepping down. We do have some older support sitting at about 61.75, but the stronger bit of support is back here at 61.31. And then, of course, we have the high time frame support way down at 60.81. I don't think price is going to make its way all the way down there. I think we're going to see sideways to down action in this very general way. Let's take a look at USDCHF, the Swissy. So as it stands right now, the market has turned around a bit since the open, so I might amend this just a little bit where perhaps the Swissy does a little bit more of a dip before it moves up, but I do expect the Swissy to stay bullish and then to continue up towards this area. It may not be able to break 90 cents, 0.9056. It might not break that. It might be able to, but I do think it wants to and eventually will. Might happen this week, might not, but I'm seeing sideways to up action in this particular pair right now. Let's take a look at the SP500. SP500 showing that the plunge protection team is most likely on the clock as of last Friday. Price really bounced off of that 58.57 and is heading up. And it looks like for now there was a slight gap up on the SP500 and it will possibly hold up here in this 59.60, 59.70 area. We're going to see what happens. I expect sideways action, but that might run out of gas as well. It just really depends on how important it is for what I think is the plunge protection team holding up the price. But then again, anything can happen and that team only has so much ability. This is a little bit less predictable, these indices, because of the way that market is held up, right? So for the moment, I do expect sideways to up and then possibly a melt off towards the end of the week. And of course, the possibility that the markets get some kind of news and pop up really hard, that's always there with these indices. Let's take a look at the Dow Futures. Same story with the Dow Futures, pop up on Friday, plunge protection team is what I think it is. I think we're going to see sideways action, possibly pop up, and then a retrace down at the end of the week to end up at the same lows as we did last week, provided that the PPT doesn't come in with lots and lots of money. Let's take a look at the NASDAQ. NASDAQ not looking quite as good. Looks like we'll see the plunge protection team try to hold things up. It may or may not. I mean, there's a natural support sitting right there at 20,430 or so. I think we're going to see sideways and then maybe move down towards the end of the week, provided that it doesn't do the opposite. Plunge protection team put a bunch of money, or the market gets some kind of news and pops up really hard. We'll see how all that goes. Let's take a look at gold. Now, gold has been selling off for about a week or two. Vita Gorilla did tell us that was going to happen. Now, it did hit a support here and bounce up, and that happened Friday. The market open has been pretty quiet. They gapped up, then it's been staying in that same 2860 to 2870 range. I do think price is going to go at least sideways and pull down, but international instability with the Ukraine situation could cause this to head back up. We all saw what happened in the White House, and to me, gold is being suspiciously quiet based on that. So we're going to see what happens with gold this week. It might be a little bit of a surprise, but if the charts are the only indication as to what's going to happen, I do expect sideways to a pull down towards the end of the week, and we'll see what happens with that. Let's take a look at silver. Now, silver came down a little bit sooner and harder than gold did from a percentage standpoint. It did find some support sitting at about 30.80. I do expect at least a small rally and then possibly either sideways between 30.95 and maybe about 31.70-ish, or a move down to this next older range, which is $29.99, basically $30 to $30.90 or so. And that's all we got in the charts for this week. Remember, right now there's a lot of headline risk, right? So whatever predictions are done here are based on what it looks like the charts are going to do, and of course a little bit of mojo that I have, just kind of knowing the markets and how they react and how they're controlled and so on and so forth. These charts are not here for me to trade. They're here for me to understand what's probably going to happen. Now, I actually drew this silver chart prior to the market open, knowing that it might probably go up like that. I drew it last night. So far, it seems that I am correct in what it's done. I'm pretty good at predicting price, and anytime you can predict where price is going to go, you can extract money from the markets. And what I do is I teach people how to build those systems so that they themselves can extract money out of the market. We do that over at algofactor.tech. Please come on over, take a look at algofactor.tech if you want to learn how to build your own trading system, your own algo that can turn into a side income, that can turn into, for some people, a main income. It can turn into a retirement plan. It can turn into a lot of things. But what it does is it takes the market whims away, and it allows you to have a little bit more control of how you want to take money out of the market, as opposed to just buying something and holding it for 2 or 3 years and hoping that it's going to work, or as opposed to giving some other person your money and hoping that they do a good job. And most of these fund managers can barely beat the SP500, so it's almost doesn't make any sense to give your money to somebody else just to underperform the rest of the market, right? Well, you can come over to algofactor.tech and teach yourself how to outperform the market, and your probability of success is going to be almost directly related to your work ethic, your dedication, right? Your tenacity. Those are the things that are going to make you successful. So come on over to algofactor.tech, learn how to trade like a hedge fund pro, and we will see you Tuesday morning for the live show, 8:30 a.m. EST sharp.